Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program Better Than Ever. Now, in the previous episode we left Jeb preparing for his safety netless attempt to get to the Mun. So here we are in orbit around Kerbin, and this is our target, the Mun. 11 million meters away, 11,400 kilometers away. So that is the target for Apoapsis. Now, when do we leave? When do we launch? Well, the trick is to launch just as the Mun is coming over the horizon and to fire prograde. So we have a little bit of a head start on when that's going to be, because the sun will rise just before Munrise. So let's get ourselves ready. Bit of a trick of the light there to see that the sun was about to rise. So let's just forward time a little. Here we can just see the glow of sunrise about to dawn over Kerbin. So Jeb getting a nice look at sunrise. Should just be coming over the horizon in a few seconds. Now I've got the magic of SAS setting us prograde, so that should help with the steering. All we have to do is make sure that the delta V we apply gets us out to about 11 million meters, so 11,400 kilometers. And if we do, we should enter the Mun's sphere of influence, and at that point we can adjust our rather ragged approach, I suspect. The glow of Kerbal, here we go. Just seeing it pop its head above the horizon. Glorious. Absolutely glorious. Now we know the Mun won't be far behind. So the Mun's probably about here somewhere on the horizon, and as soon as we see it appear, it is literally full thrust ahead. So let's just pop a little time warp until we just see the Mun, there we go, popping its head over the horizon. So let's get our thrust going. Now we won't have much delta V left in this stage, so we will jettison this stage and carry on with our LV 909. Now fortunately, as I mentioned before, there is a self-destruct mechanism in that device, so we will eliminate that debris later. Now our target. Now it doesn't look like we're going to meet our Mun, but as the Mun progresses around its orbit, we will eventually meet it somewhere over here. So we're looking for an apoapsis of 11,000 kilometers. So that's the value we should look for here. And if we can get close to that, then we should enter the Mun's sphere of influence. So we're at 1.5 now. So we've got to get up to 11.4. So let's get ready to throttle back. We're at 2. 2.3. SAS is keeping us on prograde, so we don't need to manage our steering. 3. It's 3,000 kilometers, 3,500 kilometers. 4,000 coming up. 5,000. As we get further out, less and less delta V required to do that distance, so we want to start throttling back a little, because we don't want to overshoot. We're at 8, 9, 9.5, throttling back a little further, 10, so we want 11.4, so we've got 10,400 coming up, throttling back a little further. Too far. Go up to 11, just coming up now. We go 11, 11.1, 2, 3 and 4. There we go. Now We zoom out, we can see just touching the orbit of the Mun, so as we swing out, Mun should progress around, and well, we should get our encounter now. We're a little high. Our launch was a little off the equator, but that's still, I think, going to get us an encounter. So, let us await our encounter. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, well, we are nearing the Mun. We're still a while away. Apoapsis is a little over the orbit of the Mun, so I think we should be fine. We're a little bit high, and we're still looking quite a bit away, but as we slow down, as we approach Apoapsis, I think we'll find ourselves nicely in the Mun's sphere of influence. So let's just accelerate a little further. We can see the remote tech transmitter there on the far side of Kerbin at the moment at mission control, but we are under manual Kerbal control, so transmitters are not an issue here. So let's just accelerate time a little further as we start to drift towards our target. Won't be long now that we drop into the sphere of influence, which is about 2,500 kilometers, so it's still quite a large sphere, a large target for us to aim for as we approach this point. There we go. Let's reduce time warp, and I think we've certainly managed an encounter. I think we do need to sort that out, because as per our contract we need to achieve orbit around the Mun. So orbit is probably the first thing. Whoops, gets the right way around. Orbit is the first thing we need to achieve. So I think we need to get our periapsis out around here. So let's just turn ourselves around. And drive the orbit in this direction, so push the orbit out this way. So let's just throttle up and get our orbit pushed up, or rather over. So we're thrusting in this direction. Just a little thrust, just enough to take us around so we don't actually collide with the Mun. Should get ourselves an actual periapsis shortly. You can see the orbit coming out slightly. There we go. There we go, about 30, that should be fine. Now if we point ourselves south, if I get it the right way around, not north, south, we can actually see if we can level out. Oops, have I gone too far? No, there we go. Point ourselves south. We'll be able to bring this down. Now we'll be getting a little bit nearer the equator, so we may actually find we lose a little periapsis. We may have to sort that. Not so bad. The periapsis was more or less on the equator as it was, so that's not so bad. There we go. Maybe a little further. Doesn't actually matter, I suppose. There we go. 2,000. I think we do need to push our periapsis out just a little, I think. I don't think... Oh, wrong way. I don't think that will do us much good. So let's just push our periapsis out, and we'll use this node as a guide. So about 20 maybe. So throttle up a little. So There's 10. There we go, 20. That should be rather nice, I think. A little bit of an angle, but just need to be in orbit. So at some point we are going to have to point retrograde and decelerate ourselves into an orbit. Now our periapsis is, where are we? 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 90 minutes away. So if we start firing at about 40 or 50 seconds, I think that should bring us into a nice orbit. So let's use the miracle of time warp to bring us into our periapsis. So we watch our periapsis time. Okay, 1 hour 25, 1 hour 20. Now we will be speeding up as we approach periapsis, so we do need to manage our time warp effectively. So there we go, 55 minutes, 50 minutes, 40 minutes, we go 30 minutes, 23, we go 15 minutes. So let's just drop one time warp, 11 minutes, down to 8, 6, drop time warp again as we go to 3 minutes, down to 2 minutes now, and it's coming down under 1 minute. So there we go. So let's let SAS do its thing and then throttle up. See our orbit coming in, and there's an orbit worthy of Jeb. Now we're not quite in a circular enough orbit, it would appear, to count for the contract. So let's just bring that in. There we go. So we have now satisfied achieve orbit around the Mun. Not the best orbit, not the straightest, least eccentric, but it will do just nicely for the purposes of our exercise. Now we do have to transmit or recover science data from around the Mun. So I think we'll leave the Science Junior and we will take the goo container observation now. So we are feeling right at home. We can take a crew report, and yes, it does look rather cold and grey. And finally, squeezing in here, we can take a temperature reading, which will get us 21 science. So let's pick that and keep it. So we still have some science we can do on the surface. We can do the Science Junior on the surface. So let's get ready and prepare for our descent. We rejoin Jeb as he has now arrived at apoapsis, so let's just gently increase the throttle and bring our periapsis down onto the surface. So we're going to look to put ourselves down here. Now the Mun is rotating, so probably won't be landing in this crater, we'll be landing somewhere here, but one thing at a time. Let's get our periapsis down. There we go. So we are ready to land. Perfect. So let us use the miracle of time warp just to bring ourselves around to our approach. Somewhere around here. Now we are moving quite slowly at the moment, but that will speed up as gravity increases, or our effect of gravity increases on our craft as we approach our landing spot. Somewhere here. Just drop down time warp a notch, and then a notch again, and then let's get ready to land. Now, our altitude above the terrain is what we really need to be checking on. It's just over 59 kilometers. Rather nice view there to be sending back to Kerbin Space Center. Pick that off, send that postcard back, or rather bring it back. We don't have any transmitters because we are definitely bringing Jeb home. So let's start with the gears down. 52 kilometers to go, so I reckon if we get down to 15, maybe 12 kilometers and then fire at full throttle, that should then bring us down. We'll leave SAS to manage our direction of thrust. So let's just gently increase time warp so we approach the surface. "26 kilometers above the surface, coming down to 20. There we go, 16 kilometers. So let's see what our surface speed is. Our surface speed is 725 meters per second. Pretty hefty speed. So let's start burning some of that speed off. So full thrust with our LV909 engine. We have 2,500 delta V. We're going to be pretty tight, so we need to be careful, not too wasteful. There we go, 560 meters per second. Reducing both our horizontal speed and our vertical speed. Mostly horizontal at this point. Looks like we're going to be landing here, so if we just let the SAS and gravity do its thing, we should end up a nice curve somewhere over here. So 6 kilometers and 350 meters per second. 300 meters per second at 5.5 kilometers above the surface. So it looks like we're aiming for somewhere over here. 1900 delta V, 150 meters per second. Missed that large crater, but we're aiming for here. Start picking out objects on the surface, and we're starting our descent. So we should be landing somewhere on this plane between these two craters, so we should get some sunlight still if it remains above the horizon. So 3 kilometers above the surface. Slowly becoming vertical. Let's just herd the retrograde marker into the center. Start slowing ourselves down. Start burning away. 40, 20, and there we go, just drifting above the surface, almost perfect. In fact, I couldn't have done much better. Yeah, brilliant one, Jeb. Absolutely brilliant. Let's get a postcard again for Gene to prove we're here. Photographic evidence is always good. Oh dear. Now we need some science. We have landed on the Mun, so now we need some science. Now, we deliberately kept our materials bay, so let's collect that science. Fine dust of the Mun is intermixed with some of the samples. Yes, yeah. We'll never be able to get it clean again. Well, we'll keep that. We have another mystery goo container to observe. Goo is less dense. Yeah. Now, if we try the thermometer, we already have an existing temperature scan, so we will save scanning temperature for later. So, that was pretty rough. A pretty suicidal burn, but we made it. Now, unfortunately for Jeb can't actually leave the capsule. He has plenty of food and water, and his waste containers aren't particularly full, but he can't EVA yet, so he is stuck because we have to upgrade the astronaut complex. Still, he can have a look, sort of. Can't really see the Mun from there, but he does have a nice picture of a starry sky. Oh dear, right, let us get ready to go back. Get our camera orientated right, camera orientated auto. Yes, get ourselves ready to go back. Now, how are we going to get back? Well, that is the thing. We're obviously going to take off, but there is a cunning plan. By landing here, we can simply launch prograde in this direction. So launching in this direction, and that is actually ideal. If we were to actually have a maneuver node, we would have put it here and launched ourselves in this direction, which will ultimately bring us back to Kerbin. Mission control, as we can see. So actually landing here has been a cunning plan. So let's see if we can get our cunning plan to pay off. So we've done our science. Jebediah is already bored of looking at the sky, given that he can't actually get out of the capsule. So let's go. We have 1600 delta V, and that should be plenty. So let's get ourselves going on the 90-degree mark, much like we would if we were launching from Kerbin on our gravity turn. We'll pull up the landing legs, and let's now watch as we ascend. Now, we don't need to get too high, but we do need to get a long way out. We need to get out to about 2,500 kilometers in order to escape the Mun's sphere of influence. So let's get cracking. So we are at maximum throttle, burning through our delta V quite rapidly. We still have 1 minute and 30 odd seconds to go, so that's plenty of time as we say goodbye to our landing site back over here as we head home. So let's check how we're doing. So we need this to be about 2.5 million meters. So let's watch that. 300,000. There's 1 million. Slow down the throttle a little bit. Don't waste any. There we go. 2,500 kilometers. So by the time we get out here, we will have just left the Mun's sphere of influence, and we still have 781 delta V left, which will be enough to manage our periapsis as we fall back towards Kerbin. So there goes the Mun. Jeb is pleased with his day's work. So I think it is about time for us to move on. So if we use warp to approach our apoapsis, see us moving away from the Mun. Time warp is 100 now. to 500 as we approach apoapsis. Of course our speed slows down as we approach. And there we go. We are out of the sphere of influence of the Mun and back into an orbit around Kerbin. So let us point retrograde and start bringing in our periapsis. Now for an aero capture, we will try bringing in the periapsis to about 30, maybe slightly less than 30 kilometers. That'll be plenty of drag in the atmosphere to bring us down. So 1 million meters. Still 50 seconds of fuel. 600 meters, 600 kilometers, 600 meters. Let's just bring in the throttle a bit. There we are. We're now in the atmosphere. Coming down. There we go. 25. That's plenty. 25. Absolutely plenty. And we still had 500 meters per second of delta V. So we are going to hit the atmosphere here. This will bring our apoapsis and we should land somewhere here hopefully. So there is our forlorn looking craft in the cold dark of space as we enter the eclipse of Kerbin. So let's see if we can bring ourselves back into sunlight. There we go. Rather attractive view as we return. Back towards Kerbin. Does rather look like a diamond ring, doesn't it? Or rather yellowish diamond ring, but a ring nevertheless. Another postcard, and then let's continue back towards periapsis. So let's bring up our time warp as we journey back towards Kerbin. Now while we are waiting, have a look at TAC life support. We still had 19 days worth of food, water and oxygen, so we did rather well there. So those 2 hex cans were plenty. And of course we can check on the supplies here as well. So we hardly made a dent, what is that, 10% maybe in our food, water and oxygen. And we still had maybe about 10% left of fuel and oxidizer. So that's pretty good. I think we did pretty good. So let's just focus now on Kerbin as we start to accelerate towards the atmosphere. There we go. Close-up view now. 100 kilometers up. Bring time warp down as we get ready to enter the atmosphere. Now, I did say we were going to jettison this lower half, but we might be able to save us some money. So let's just create a new stage. So if we need to, we can always swap the stages and drop this lower, now empty fuel stage. But if we can save it, that does save some money, and this is all about making money to upgrade our facilities. So every fund helps. So let's see, back on our contract window. So we'll see when we have successfully landed that we have recovered our science. So almost at the top of the atmosphere now, 73 kilometers, 72, and 69. So we have now entered the very, very upper atmosphere. You can see the atmosphere indicator starting to move. But we'll be diving deep into the atmosphere, and we should get plenty of drag, which will hopefully bring us into land. Rather nice mountain range here over this crater. Very attractive. Must holiday there. Must give the boys a few days off. Get them to go and do some surfing. Doesn't look much like much surf, maybe. Just maybe some beach combing. Or maybe skiing. Maybe they prefer skiing. But they'll get some days off. This has been an excellent mission, and they will definitely have earned some days off. So we're now 40 kilometres. There we go, 38 kilometres. Let's just pop the parachute so they're ready to deploy. Let's turn the SAS off and just let the rather brick-like aerodynamics of this craft do their thing as we return back into Kerbin. Now if we go to the map view, you can see the too far. Point of apoapsis is coming down very rapidly, and our periapsis is dropping as well. So it looks like we will be recovered somewhere here on land. A little bit easier to recover the vessel. Let's just see where our orbit's going to take us, or our lack of orbit I should say. Yeah, so somewhere into this desert. So we're going to be landing away from buildings, safe and sound. So there we come, aerodynamic effects, atmospheric effects rather, proving, and there's the parachutes. Yeah, so proving we're slowing down. We're slowing down very rapidly, 1.4 kilometers per second, and slowing down very rapidly to land somewhere over here. Hopefully this won't be a rougher landing than we had on the Mun. Jeb doesn't look so excited now. I think he's coming home. I think he's looking forward to a few days of R&R. So we're now down to 18 kilometers. Now I'm going to put the gears down just to absorb some of the impact as we begin to decelerate down into, well, hopefully somewhere flattish here. We hope. We do have a little bit of fuel if we need to soften the landing, but 3 parachutes should be plenty. And of course we can always drop the bottom stage if we get into a bit of a panic. There we go, coming down to 11 kilometers over the deserts, desert biome. Looks a bit sparsely populated, let's call it. Sparsely populated. But at least we won't be hitting anyone, at least we won't be destroying any destructible buildings. Should be fine for that. So I'd say levelling off, we're more verticaling off, whatever the word for that is. If you know the word for that, please do tell. Becoming more vertical. Our terrain altitude is just 4 kilometers. And we've already dropped to 135 meters per second. 120 meters per second at 1.7 kilometers above the surface. Start seeing the rather sparse desert foliage. And there our parachutes deploy. So 7.5 meters per second, that should be perfectly okay for landing. So we're 380 meters above the surface now. say we were bringing it into a controlled landing, but I don't think there's been very much control over this entire mission. But it has demonstrated you can get from the Mun, and you can get indeed to the Mun without the need for manoeuvre nodes. They do make things a heck of a lot simpler, but it can be done. Even I can do it. So if I can do it, you can do it. Hey, Jeb? I think we have demonstrated our our lack of skills. So there we go, 140 meters above the surface, 7.2 meters per second. It's going to be a hard impact, but we should survive. We're below 10, and 10 is really the break point, literally the break point for most craft. Here we go. Bang. Looks like the legs did rather embed in the desert sand, but we made it. You're back safe and sound. So let's recover the vessel and see what we earned. Well, looking at the science, we retrieved a hefty amount of science, although because of our strategy some of that science was converted into funds. We retrieved probably the majority of our parts. Not necessarily the most powerful or expensive parts, but we did actually recover them. Although we did lose quite a lot of value because we were quite a long way from the space centre. But we did retrieve Jebediah, and that's probably the most important part. And he gained 5 experience points as a result. But what of our contracts? We have successfully explored the Mun, for which we got 94,500 funds and a hefty chunk of reputation. Now, it doesn't really count as exploring the Mun, but contract complete. And as part of that, we transmitted and recovered data from the surface and from space. We obviously landed, and we did manage to achieve our orbit. So I think we did pretty well. So with that in mind, I think the boys need a day off. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.